Did you know that folks across America dropped over $2 billion on raised garden beds just last year? Your average backyard grower is shelling out anywhere from $300 to $650 just to fill one single 4 by 8 foot box with wood. Rich dirt and those fancy soil boosters. Then come every springtime, they are spending another $100 or more on extra fertilizer, plus $50 or so on irrigation parts to keep things green. And after about 5 or 6 seasons, that wood just rots away and they have to start the whole cycle over. Now, what if I shared a secret way that costs absolutely zero pumps, out massive harvests, and basically waters and feeds itself? Better yet, it actually gets more fruitful every single year for the next 20 years straight. And here is the kicker. This is not some flashy new invention. It is a way of growing that is truly ancient. We are talking about a technique proven over hundreds of years across every corner of the globe. You probably haven't heard a peep about it simply because nobody can make a dime selling it to you. This is the real story of the garden style that makes those fancy raised beds look like a waste of time. If you enjoy learning these old-school secrets, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. Honestly, the big garden corporations would much rather keep you in the dark to protect their own bottom line. To really grasp the magic we have forgotten, we have to step away from the fancy labs and colleges and head back to a simple grandmother's garden over in Germany. Back in 1962, a fellow named Hermann Andra, who really knew his plants, put out a little gardening pamphlet that was about to quietly flip the whole farming world upside down. He wrote about a method called Hügelkultur, which is just a fancy way of saying mound culture or hill farming. But old Herman wasn't trying to claim he invented the wheel or anything. He was just writing down the amazing things he saw as a kid playing in his grandma's backyard. She had this big old heap of old logs and woody junk tucked away in a corner of her yard. And let me tell you, the veggies and greenery growing out of that pile were absolutely incredible. They stood taller, looked way greener, and outproduced every other plant on the whole farm. What really stumped Andra was that nobody ever hauled a bucket of water to that pile. Nobody fed it and nobody weeded it. It just grew wild and heavy with food year after year. That is when it finally clicked for Andra. He was witnessing a timeless secret that old-school farmers across Europe had been using since the Middle Ages. Those folks would grab fallen timber, dry branches, and whatever organic scraps they could find. They would stack them high into long, sturdy mounds, throw some dirt over the top, and plant right into it. Now, these farmers didn't have fancy degrees. What they did have were hungry bellies and pretty poor soil to work with. Out of pure need, they stumbled onto a truth that modern scientists are just now starting to catch up with. Those dirt mounds actually improved as the years rolled by. Your crops get bigger while your chores get smaller, all while that soil turns rich, dark, and deep. The plants grow tough as nails, and you rarely have to water them once things get settled in. If this sounds like something you want to try, hit that like button so I know to make more guides. Without even trying, those old-timers had copied the most powerful growing system Mother Nature ever made. You see, this is the very same magic happening right now on every forest floor. Every single woodland across the globe is built right on top of a base of decaying timber. When a big tree topples over, it doesn't just disappear into thin air. It turns into what we call a nurse log, a rotting trunk that becomes the richest seed bed in the whole wild world. If you ever hike through an old forest out west, you will spot ferns, thick moss, and even giant trees sprouting right out of those old fallen logs. Nature has been running this perfect setup for over 300 million years now. Those medieval folks didn't invent this hill culture, they just watched the forest and copied its homework on purpose. But since this way of growing never had a fancy brand name or a price tag, I'm sharing it here so you can save money and grow better. Drop a comment if you've ever tried building one. This story never had a corporate check or a single dime of marketing budget. It grew by porch talk and handshakes passed down through the generations of neighbors. When the 1900s brought tractors and those heavy chemical spray rigs, and big garden stores popped up everywhere, old talk wasn't enough.
Mouth was
Now
not
things get
enough.
real intense. One gritty guy took this lost secret and went so big the government tried to break him. Our hero, Sepp Holzer, was born in 1942 in Rammingstein, Austria. In 1962, right when that famous farming booklet hit the streets, Sepp took over his family homestead, a place called Krameterhof. It sat on a steep mountain over 4,000 feet up in the air. Neighbors could barely coax grass from this land. The winters were brutal, hitting 20 below zero Celsius every single year. The dirt was thin. That growing window was painfully short for anyone. Everyone followed the rules: flat dirt, straight lines, and government-picked crops. Sepp looked at those rule books and decided they were flat out wrong. Instead of grading his hills flat, he built massive terraces. While others burned their dead timber, Sepp buried it. He stacked logs and branches into massive mounds, smothered them in soil, and planted right on top just like folks did back in the Middle Ages. Then he did something impossible. Subscribe for more farm secrets. He grew citrus trees, lemons, and kiwis, and sweet figs on a frozen mountain that regularly hits 20 below zero Celsius. The inspectors noticed. They showed up with clipboards and fat stacks of fines. They measured his mounds and ticketed his illegal mountain fishing ponds. They slapped him with violation after violation, dozens in a year. Then came 1986. After heavy storms, the law accused him of building dangerous water structures. He just paid the bills and appealed, proving his ponds actually saved the valley from floods. By 1989, it was war. The farm board threatened to seize his land and his home. They even threatened jail. Sepp gave them a legendary invitation to visit. He told them to see his harvest. What they found defied science. Lemon trees were snapping under ripe fruit, their leaves glowing green against a backdrop of deep snow. Thick kiwi vines climbed up native spruce trees. Grapes ripened on slopes where neighbors couldn't even grow basic mountain cabbage. Sweet figs swelled in the mountain air. His homestead grew 10 times more food than anyone else, using no irrigation, no chemicals, or outside soil. Just buried wood rotting away, doing what nature intended. Like for more? By 1992, after one more fine for his pond work, Sepp was famous across the land as the most ticketed farmer around. He wore that badge with serious pride. The real turning point came in 1995, when professors and students from the famous University of Natural Resources in Vienna made the long trek up his mountain. They arrived skeptical. Within a few days, they certified that the Krameterhof was a perfect model of permaculture. The head professor, a man named Bernd Loetsch, said Sepp's farm held all the success secrets of genuine wilderness ecosystems, showing a living order hidden behind chaos. Share this video for more secrets. Nowadays, Sepp Holzer's legendary spread covers 50 hectares and features 70 beautiful ponds. He manages the entire operation with only 2 helpers. He actually uses pigs to till new garden beds by scattering corn right where he needs digging. Just a few days later, those hogs have finished the work of a heavy tractor. They even fertilize the soil perfectly while they are busy rooting around. The farm thrives with almost zero outside resources or expensive chemical inputs. Even the famous mountaineer Reinhold Messner has taken notice of this place. He calls Holzer's success proof that we can move beyond industrial farming and monocultures. But listen, Holzer is not using any magic or secret tricks here. He is simply using the natural processes found on every forest floor on our planet. Once you understand the science, you will never look at a rotting log the same way. Make sure to subscribe to Lost Farm Secrets so you never miss a practical tip like this. Step into any old-growth forest and take a close look at the damp ground. You will find fallen trees in various stages of breaking down and decaying. You will see moss on top ferns in the cracks and tiny seedlings growing from the wood. Folks in forestry have a special name for these old trunks. They call them nurse logs. A nurse log is one of the most fertile growing spots you can find in nature. Here is why when wood rots, something truly amazing happens to its very inner structure. The walls of wood cells are mostly made of a substance called lignin. Lignin is a complex organic polymer that creates a maze of microscopic pores and tiny tunnels. As fungi eat through the lignin, these internal pathways start to open up much wider. The wood becomes incredibly porous and starts acting exactly like a giant natural sponge. The structure changes as lignin breaks down, allowing it to hold on to massive amounts of water. It is not just a metaphor, it is a physical sponge that sucks up and stores moisture. In actual laboratory tests, scientists found some pretty incredible things about these logs. Decayed pine logs soaked up water equal to 500% of their own dry weight. Just stop and think about that for a second, because it is a game changer. A 10-pound piece of rotten wood can hold 50 pounds of water inside itself. Even oak, which decays slowly, can double or triple its weight with all that absorbed moisture. If you find this method as cool as I do, hit that like button to help other farmers. Now, bury that wood underground, cover it with soil, and start planting your favorite crops. You have just built a massive, invisible water reservoir right underneath your garden. When the rain falls, the buried logs soak it up, keeping it safe from sun and wind. During those hot, dry summer weeks, that stored water begins to move back upward. Through capillary action, it feeds moisture to your plant roots exactly when they are most thirsty. This creates a reliable, hidden backup water supply right under your garden beds. The actual field measurements really tell the whole story of why this works so well. In July, when regular soil is cracking and you are dragging heavy hoses every single day, probes inside a hugelkultur mound still show 40 to 60% soil moisture levels. That is like having springtime moisture in the middle of a scorching hot summer. Having 40 to 60% moisture in mid-July makes a massive difference for your plants. A retired teacher in the Northwest built her first mound using old maple logs. She filled the gaps with grass clippings and put a good layer of soil on top. By the second spring, she put her garden hose away and has not used it since. Drop a comment below and let me know if you are going to try this on your farm. A standard raised bed is basically a wooden frame filled with bags of purchased potting soil. It has 0 internal ways to store any water. Water leaks out the bottom and evaporates off the top. That means you are stuck watering your plants every single day from planting time until you finally harvest. Season after season, those wooden boxes just cannot duplicate that deep, natural moisture found in the ground. But folks holding water is only the first benefit of buried wood. Just the beginning. Once you pile dirt over those logs and the moisture gets inside, that mound becomes a powerhouse engine. Beneficial fungi and bacteria swarm the wet wood, eating through the tough fibers. This natural breakdown is exothermic, meaning it creates its own heat. That biological activity keeps things nice and warm. Free heat from decomposition is a real game changer. The center of a hugel mound stays several degrees warmer than flat dirt, which is no small thing. It is a massive advantage. In spring, when your neighbor's plot is cold and wet, your mound beds are already waking up. Seeds sprout earlier and transplants grow much faster. Come autumn, when the frost kills off everyone else's tender garden crops, that hidden warmth gives your tomatoes and peppers several extra weeks of life and production. Holzer used this thermal trick to grow tropical food 4,000 feet up in the Alps. You can use it to extend your growing season by 30 days in almost any climate. Subscribe now for more farm secrets. Now, let's talk about a secret that will change how you think about your garden dirt. Seeing the ground differently starts with understanding these amazing, living and breathing, moisture-holding, and heat-producing nurse logs. In 1997, ecologist Suzanne Simard made a discovery that totally rewrote the book on how forests work. She found that beneath trees, everything is connected together through a massive, hidden network of helpful soil fungi. These fungal threads, called mycelium, weave through the earth and plug directly into the tree roots, forming these incredible mycorrhizal networks. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil contains miles of these fungal filaments. People call it the wood wide web. It is extraordinary. Through this web, trees share water and vital nutrients, carbon and nitrogen, phosphorus, and even warning signals. A tree being eaten by bugs sends a chemical message through the network to others. letting neighbors start their defenses before the pests even arrive at them. Big trees, called mother trees, use the web to send food to tiny seedlings in the shade. Forests are not just groups of trees competing together. Share this video if you love learning about nature's secrets like this. You are building the perfect home for these fungal webs to grow in your garden beds. The rotting wood becomes a scaffold for the fungi. These fungi live in wood, crawl through the dirt, and link right up with your garden plant roots. Suddenly, your tomatoes are feeding from a huge network. Tell me your garden results below. Think of it like they are tapped into a secret subterranean highway system running through that whole mound. Grabbing moisture and minerals from spots those roots could never reach by themselves. That is why hugel beds keep getting more productive over time instead of wearing out. Every year, that fungal web gets more complex and the connections simply multiply. Nutrient recycling starts running more efficiently. Your garden is not just hanging on. It is building massive infrastructure underground, a living fungal internet that serves your plants for decades to come. No bag of fertilizer does this. No drip irrigation setup can ever do this. Those raised bed kits from the big box stores do not even come close, folks. Now let us bust the absolute biggest myth in the gardening world. For decades, internet forums and local agricultural extension offices, and even university brochures have repeated the same warning: never ever bury wood in your garden.
They say wood's way too carbon heavy.
They tell you that when carbon-rich stuff rots, bacteria steal nitrogen from your plants to fuel that breakdown process. Your crops will turn yellow, your harvest will tank, and your garden will just fail. It sounds all scientific and logical, but it is just flat out wrong. Scientists from the University of Wisconsin tested this theory head-on. They built hugel beds right next to control plots and carefully measured nitrogen levels throughout the growing season. The proof was undeniable. Not only did those hugel beds avoid nitrogen shortages, they actually had higher nitrogen than the standard control plots. It all comes down to soil biology. Tiny wood particles like sawdust and fine chips are broken down primarily by soil bacteria. And yes, bacteria are nitrogen hogs. They gobble it up during the whole decomposition. But big logs and thick branches used in hugel culture fungi do the real heavy lifting here. Mushroom roots work quite differently. They are smart with nitrogen and never rob your soil. They recycle and share nitrogen through their networks. That nitrogen myth came from a real phenomenon: bacterial breakdown of tiny wood scraps wrongly applied to a totally different sort of situation. Fungi breaking down big logs. Folks misunderstood soil biology and repeated it so often that everyone finally accepted it as the gospel truth. It stopped so many gardeners from ever trying the one method that would have made all their other garden spending totally pointless. Subscribe. A 2024 study looking at permaculture farms using buried wood confirmed the big picture for us. Soil carbon levels were 27% higher than in regular fields. Ground density dropped 20%, making it nice and fluffy for your plant's roots to breathe. Earthworm numbers increased by 201%. The ground under a hugel mound is not just plain dirt. It is a thriving community that gets stronger every single year. Subscribe now and let me show you the build. I'm also going to share those specific mistakes that'll ruin your hard work if you don't avoid them, because nobody else seems to ever mention this part, you see. Pick your spot first. Most veggies love getting that full sun. You don't necessarily have to dig, but if you do, going 1 foot down gives the mound much more stability and helps it stay moist. Comment if you have done this. You can just build right on the grass too. Start by putting down some thick cardboard to choke out those annoying weeds. Now let's talk foundation, because this right here is the most vital part. Grab the beefiest, oldest, crumbly logs around. Hardwoods like oak, maple, apple, or birch are your absolute best friends here. Usually, the more that wood has already started rotting away, the faster your new garden bed kicks into gear. If it feels soft enough to smash, you are set. That is just perfect. Fresh logs will work too, but they take longer to wake up and need extra nitrogen that first year. Here is the golden rule on the farm: never use cedar wood. Cedar has natural oils that stop things from rotting and can actually stunt your precious little plants. You also want to stay far away from black walnut or black cherry. They have nasty stuff like juglone and prussic acid that will flat out poison your garden veggies. And neighbor, do not ever use wood that is painted stained or pressure treated. Those toxic chemicals will soak right into your soil and end up in your family's food. Here is a secret most folks forget. The best trees for these mounds are alder, apple, birch, cottonwood, maple, oak, and even poplar, plus some dry willow. But if you can find wood that is already half rotten, soft and covered in white fuzzy fungus, well, you have struck garden gold. It means the perfect tiny organisms have already moved in to do the work. It will speed things up by months. Look around after storms or call local tree crews. Give your local city public works office a quick ring too. Most towns give away fallen trees and chips for free just to save on dumping fees. You are helping them out while growing a lush garden. Be sure to subscribe for more tips. I have seen folks build massive, beautiful mounds without ever spending a single penny just by using materials their neighbors were desperate to get rid of. Stack those logs tight and cram every gap with small sticks and twigs. Do not just leave a loose pile. Air pockets will eventually collapse and swallow your plants. Pack it in tight. Now, here is where folks usually mess up and become a sad story on gardening forums. After the wood, you must add a heavy layer of nitrogen. This part is not optional. It is the difference between a huge harvest and a bunch of yellow, sickly plants. Fresh grass clippings are great, but some good old manure is even better. Toss in kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, or even some liquid gold if you are brave. The tiny microbes eating that wood need plenty of nitrogen to fuel their work. If you skip this, they will steal that nitrogen right away from your growing plants. Remember, this is not that old nitrogen myth I talked about before. People claim burying wood ruins soil forever, but that is just not true. There is just a short startup phase where the system needs a boost to get moving. Once those fungal networks get settled in after a year or two, your mound actually starts producing its own supply of nitrogen. Instead of using it up, but you have to help it through that start. On top of the nitrogen pile on dry leaves, straw, or other brown yard waste. Then cap everything off with 6 to 10 inches of good topsoil or compost. This is where you plant. If you spend any money, it will be on this dirt. Total cost is maybe $20 to $50 for the whole thing. Compare that to $600 for a raised bed. Give it a soak and leave a comment. Hey folks, the first season is for roots and rot. Put your hungriest plants in right away. Squash, pumpkins, and tomatoes just love that early heat and food. Then in the second year of growth, you'll see watering needs drop fast as that wood core starts drinking and saving its own water. By year 3, most folks say they've quit watering entirely unless there's a serious drought. That pile will slowly sink and settle down. It's totally normal. That's just the system working its magic. You can layer on more compost every year if you want, but honestly, you don't really have to. It feeds itself now. Let's walk through exactly what's happening inside your mound year by year. Because this process is what makes Hugelkultur truly amazing. Year 1 logs are fresh. Bacteria and fungi start moving right in. The breakdown creates a lot of underground heat. Your bed stays several degrees warmer than the flat ground. You still gotta water things, but less than normal beds since that wood is already soaking up drinks. Big eaters like squash. And tomatoes thrive on that first nitrogen burst. Subscribe for more expert farm secrets. Year 2, those fungal networks are finally established and growing. The wooden heart is holding on to way more moisture now. Most gardeners find they can cut their watering chores in half. The dirt looks way darker and richer. Earthworm numbers are exploding because they love that damp, rotting wood under the surface. Every tunnel lets air and water reach the roots years 3 through 5, is when the magic speeds up. Those fungal webs are everywhere, hooking your plants into nutrients across the entire garden mound. Tests usually show way more nitrogen and phosphorus here than in the rest of the yard. The mound might have shrunk by about 1/3 of itself, but what's left is absolutely teeming with biological life. Plant health and strength really take off. They fight disease better since fungi share defense signals. Comment your favorite plant below. Years 5 to 10, those old logs are soft and spongy all the way. They are holding the most water they can. The soil is incredible. loose, crumbly, and full of life. You couldn't get soil this good spending $1,000 at the store. It can't be bought because only time and biology can build it right. Years 10 to 20. Hardwood logs are still breaking down feeding plants and holding onto water. The mound has flattened out, but the earth it created is the richest soil on the planet. Some folks just build a brand new pile right over the old one, starting a fresh 20-year cycle on top of perfect dirt. Share this with friends. No raised bed can do this. They're only good the day you buy that bagged soil. From that point on, they just deplete. Every harvest pulls out food. Every rain washes away minerals. Forget that. Every season you are paying more just to keep things alive. A hugelkultur mound is actually at its worst the day you build it. From that point on, it only gets better. Their paths are totally opposite. One drains your wallet annually, while the other keeps your money safe. There is one more thing about the geometry you need to know. These mounds aren't flat. Those slopes create their own tiny little microclimates. That south side catches the sun and warms up really early on. It is perfect for heat lovers like your tomatoes and garden peppers. The north side stays cool and holds onto moisture much longer. Great for lettuce and greens that usually bolt in the summer heat. One mound hosts plants with totally different needs, all tucked into their favorite spots. You are not just planting seeds, you are building a whole living landscape, folks. These results are consistent. Make sure to subscribe for more farm secrets. One neighbor actually harvested 120 pounds of cucumbers from 2 new beds. Those same mounds also grew 42 big, beautiful pumpkins, too. Another guy tracked every single dollar and found that skipping fertilizer and water saved a fortune. Those savings actually paid for his whole seed order twice over in just that first year alone. Now here is the big question. If this method works so well, why is nobody teaching it? If it costs nothing and improves every year, where's the catch? Why is every store packed with plastic kits and expensive soil bags instead of showing you this natural way? They want you buying bags of soil and fertilizer every single spring. You will not see a hugelkultur display anywhere. Just follow the money to find the real answer. A basic raised bed kit runs you $100 to $300. The soil to fill it up is another $100 to $200. Fertilizer will cost you $40 to $60 every single growing season. Watering systems add $50 to $80 more. It is the perfect product for them, y'all. The wood rot soil gets weak and all that fertilizer just washes away. You have to keep buying everything over and over in a never-ending cycle. A raised bed isn't a garden, it is just a recurring subscription fee. Hugelkultur uses old branches and yard waste you were just going to throw out in plastic bags. It uses kitchen scraps and all those leaves that pile up every single autumn. Most folks look at this stuff and see only garbage. Plenty of people actually pay money to have this exact trash hauled away. Most American homes spend $50 to $200 a year on yard waste removal. You are literally paying folks to drive off with your garden's future. Those are the building blocks of the most productive garden you will ever grow. Let me show you the real numbers side by side so you can see the truth. A small 4x8 raised bed over 10 years will cost you plenty. Expect to spend $800 to $1,500 when you replace that old wood. Plus all that extra soil fertilizer and the water bill every summer. That same size hugelkultur bed over 10 years costs almost nothing at all. Higher harvest, yields produced. Like this video if you love saving money. And you won't even need to water after year 2. It feeds itself while that store-bought bed is falling apart for the second time. Building 4 raised beds might cost you $6,000 over a decade. Yet 4 free hugelkultur mounds cost you nothing but 1 weekend of good physical labor. If you want more tips, smash that subscribe button now. That bit of sweat equity pays off for 20 years, turning backyard junk into a harvest goldmine. It requires 0 store-bought supplies. It actually improves every single season. Plus, it makes every single item at the local garden center completely unnecessary. This method is impossible to market, making it a scary threat to corporations. What they can't sell gets ignored, so these secrets must be rediscovered. It takes a curious soul to dig up these old-school growing secrets. In 1962, Hermann Andrei viewed a brush pile and saw the future. That same year, a 20-year-old Austrian farmer started building these massive wood mounds. He built them on mountain slopes that every expert claimed were totally worthless. 60 years later, Sepp Holzer's farm covers 50 hectares of amazing forest gardens. With 70 ponds, he grows food where neighbors struggle to even keep grass. Officials find him constantly and even tried to seize his family's beautiful land. They threatened jail, yet his lemons kept ripening right in the winter snow. The soil became richer until even the inspectors finally ditched their ticket books. They brought cameras instead because the results were simply too incredible to deny. Flat fields won the 20th century because tractors needed perfectly smooth ground. After 1920, mechanized farming demanded uniformity with zero bumps allowed anywhere. No mounds or hills were permitted to slow down or break a plow. Machines scraped fields flat, burning every branch and leveling every single hill. This ancient technique vanished not because it failed, but because machines didn't fit. It didn't work on a factory line where tractors must finish acres fast. Planting endless rows without interruption turned farming into a boring game of numbers. More land covered fewer obstacles and chasing the highest possible yields every hour. Fertilizer companies were thrilled. Once you flatten those natural soil mounds out, folks, you destroy the reservoirs. Without those, you are forced to buy expensive irrigation. Burning wood destroys the natural, slow-release nutrition that your plants truly crave. When you kill that fertility, you're stuck buying bags of toxic chemical fertilizer. Every product the garden shop sells exists because we ditched this perfect system. We walked away from a setup that made them all unnecessary. But listen, you aren't driving a massive tractor through your backyard. You're just growing fresh food for your family and for that mound's win. This has worked for centuries. We just stopped looking down at our dirt. Every pile of sticks or fallen branch after a big storm is gold. Those rotting logs behind your shed aren't trash. They're a gardener's best friend. They represent 20 years of moisture, natural nutrients, and incredible harvests for your family. Your local town might even give you free wood chips if you ask. Tree workers are usually dying to find a place to dump their material. You're doing them a favor while building the best garden on the block. The people selling raised bed kits really don't want you knowing this secret. Those massive chemical companies definitely don't want you knowing this either, friends. Your local store won't tell you this because they'd lose a very good customer. But now you know. Ask yourself, will you keep paying for wooden boxes? Boxes that rot every year? Or will you bury logs and pile on soil? Build a living system that your grandkids will still be picking fruit from. Earth never forgets a gift. Feed her wood and she rewards you for decades. One last thought: back in 2009, Sepp Holzer finally passed the reins of Krameterhof to Joseph. Those mounds his old man built in the 1960s still produce. That dirt is richer today than before. Those ponds stay brimming. Those lemon trees keep on growing. An oasis built from waste and grit. Started by a 20-year-old kid, everyone called nuts, outlasted every fine, every bully, and every expert who swore it was a crazy pipe dream. The earth never worries about paperwork profit margins or whatever junk the big nurseries are pushing this spring. Dirt only answers to biology, and the science is clear. Just bury logs, let them rot, and watch plants thrive. If this shifted your whole outlook on growing your food, share this with a buddy fixin' to drop $600 on beds. To uncover more hidden tips, the Industry Hides hit that subscribe button. Folks, we are just getting started.